Hi, and welcome to Pillow Talk with Angela. I'm your host, Angela Stribling. And on this show, we talk all about love and sex and dating and being married, being single, all that stuff. And we talk about inspiration. We just want you to be your best self. And this is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're going to talk about mental health. Let's start with my dear friend. Actually, she's a friend of the show. It's been a while since we have had the good doctor on. She's a clinical psychologist, and she does so many other things. She's on the speaker circuit, and she's here. Dr. Nicole Cutts, welcome.
Hi, Angela. Thanks for having me.
So good to see you again. And we brought along one of my dear friends who always gives me a hard time, but we love him anyway. Son of the late Don Cornelius, of course, and he does so many things on his own. I mean, Tony Cornelius is an amazing producer, and he keeps the Don Cornelius Foundation going just to keep suicide prevention awareness going as well. So please welcome my dear friend, Tony Cornelius.
Angela Stribling, how are you? You always give me the white glove slap in the face, but that's okay.
What do you mean?
That's okay.
White gloves slap in the face.
I still love you. In other words, it doesn't hurt. You slap me.
Tony is starting out. We've got a psychologist with us, so she's going to sort you out.
I'm starting to think I need to do some couples therapy here.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. That's so funny.
Dr. Nicole Cutts, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Same here, Tony. It's nice to meet you as well.
Yes.
I'm happy that Dr. Cutts and I had a conversation recently about mental health, and she said that she'd be happy to come on and talk about it, especially mental health in the African American community. Right? I mean, I'm sure you both will agree that's always been something culturally that we just don't really talk about, and it's been really played down. People don't seek help, for that. So, Dr. Cutts, do you want to start that conversation?
Yeah, I think it's a really important conversation. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and but mental health and mental illness doesn't always look the same for everybody, and one of the barriers sometimes for folks in the African American or Black community is providers that are not culturally competent. So I think we need to talk about what that looks like, what's culturally competent mental health, so that African Americans and Black folks can get the best care possible.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, you as the world knows, lost your dad, Don Cornelius, to suicide. What was it, 2012?
2012, correct.
2012. And so, I know you do a lot for suicide prevention awareness. Do you find that here we are, 2023, are people as aware as they need to be, or where are we now?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I think we still struggle with this this issue. I mean, I don't want to call it an issue. It's life, And I'm sure, Dr. Nicole Cutts can testify to that as well. And specifically the Black male. He's extremely proud. He's extremely, he's struggling at the moment. I mean, financially, we don't talk about it. I mean, I have friends of my own and my contemporaries who are really struggling and don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And we see articles all the time. We see statistics, but I don't think there's much being done. I'm a member of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which is one of the largest organizations. But it's still kind of behind the times when you focus as far as focusing on minorities. And they're getting up to speed, but there's a lot of pain in our community. There's a lot of pain, and I mean, my father was one of those guys. He was one of those Black men who struggled, and there's plenty of them out there, And I just don't know I wish I had the answers, and we've been taking baby steps, but it's still something that we need to find ways to talk about it.
I think these conversations are good, just to get it out there. And Dr. Cutts, you said something early on that in terms of where to get the care, as pointed out, there's so many, especially of our men who are struggling. They don't know who to talk to. Yes, a lot of Black men struggle with going to the doctor in general, but all doctors are not created equally.
That's true.
Right? When you're seeking out,
Yeah,
especially
that's correct.
care,
I mean, historically and today, we see where African Americans have suffered from inequality of care, right? We know that African Americans are diagnosed differently, incorrectly. A lot of studies are not done to include the African American population. So that's a part of the problem. But then we also have, the institutionalized racism and bias, So when you go to a provider that has a bias, either unconscious or conscious, and they're projecting that onto you, that doesn't create a good dynamic for care. So it's very important that you find a provider who is culturally competent. They don't have to be Black, but they definitely need to be culturally competent. Or
what do you do?
What do you do? Well, you got to know where to look. There is, for example, the Association of Black Psychologists. They have a provider directory. I found some great resources on NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and they have a special area, concerning this topic that we're talking about today. And they have a lot of great resources. So when you are looking for a therapist, you can go to some place like the American Association of Black Psychologists, but you can also ask the providers that you're interviewing, because that's a common thing to interview a provider, especially in this case. Like I have consultations with people, 20, 30 minutes just on the phone. And you can ask them, do you have expertise in treating a multicultural population? Do you have expertise treating African Americans? What do you do to stay current on the issues of cultural competence and mental health, across the spectrum, which is a wide spectrum for African Americans, right? There's not just the Black community, but what do you do to stay abreast of those issues and changes? So you can actually ask people that, and you can just sort of, tell if you bring it up to them, say, I've noticed that you're white, I'm African American, do you feel like that could be a barrier in terms of our communication? You can tell often by how the person responds if they would be a culturally competent provider for you.
I love that. To be perfectly honest, I don't know that a lot of people are inclined to do that. Like you're sitting in a doctor's office and, you want to just kind of go along and just get some help. And people are reluctant. I mean, you're the patient. Of course, you deserve to ask these questions, but I do think people get in that situation and are a little reluctant. So it's good to, I guess, get that message out there that it's healthy. It actually helps the doctor to know how to help you.
Yes, I mean, but you can also interview them ahead of time, right? So you don't have to, necessarily be their patient if they don't give you the right answers. But once you engage in treatment, you're right. You should also be able to speak up and advocate for yourself. And if the relationship doesn't feel right, if it feels like this person is not providing you proper care, then it is a difficult conversation, but it's something that you have to do to advocate for yourself. And that's a part of the self-care that we also have to engage in.
Yeah.
It's interesting to talk about this. And personally, I was looking for a primary care physician for myself, and I was just thumbing through my, phone to see, who I would like to see.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking for a Black doctor, looking for a minority, or looking for whoever it was. And it's kind of, I'd run across the doctor and say, well, I don't like the way he looks, or I don't like the review that he had, or I don't like. The point I'm trying to make is that you have to be proactive, and for us in particular, I mean, I think women in particular have a better chance of getting the best medical care that they can find because they start so early. Young girls start at 12 and 13 years old. We get a scratch and say, okay, I'm okay. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. It's the same with mental health. It's the same with me trying to find a physician, an intern, or a cold. Well, I'll do it later. I feel okay. I'll let my body heal itself.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing that stops us from finding the right person and being proactive about our health.
Right, right.
I don't know. We probably need to go back to school. Men in general, and I don't think it's
Well,
just
yeah,
black men. It's probably all men.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know what you found in your business. Those that reach out to you for whatever reason. But I think women are way ahead of us.
I think you're right in some ways, but I think that, while, the majority of people do maybe conform to those stereotypes, you have a lot of exceptions. There's also, a wide swath of African American women who don't take care of themselves because they're so busy taking care of everybody else. Right. So it might be less about the pride of, going and getting help and more about putting themselves second. Whereas for men, it might have more to do, in some cases, 'cause I don't want to, say everybody, might have more to do with that idea of, what it means to be a man, means to be strong. But, it is strong, obviously, to ask for help, to be vulnerable, to, to say, I'm hurting, and that's where I think that we can do a lot for each other in terms of reducing the stigma, which is to have conversations like this and to normalize the fact that, we struggle with mental illness just as much, if not more, than other folks.
Yeah. And add to that, men and women who aren't economically thriving, and they're like, okay, I'm having some issues, I'm depressed or whatever, but, I'll just try to cheer myself up. I don't have insurance. So that stops a lot of people from going to, the doctor for anything, mental issues or otherwise. And so, Dr. Cutts, what do you say to those people?
Well, for one, I say you're right. When it comes to priorities or what are we going to spend our money on, if I have diabetes, am I going to go to the doctor to have that treated? Or if I'm depressed, go to the doctor to have that treated, right? So part of it is just reality. If you have limited funds, that does stop a lot of people. But there are, again, resources out there. I hate to keep harping on NAMI, but when I went there, that's one of the things they talked about as well. If you're having trouble, here's some, and we can put the links in the chat for people. But, here's some resources that can be helpful for you. Don't realize that they have benefits through their employee health benefits, or their job might have an EAP. So people can explore those options as well.
Or they could be and not able to afford to pay the monthly fee for insurance. So we'll definitely put that in the chat. So let's just switch gears for just a second. I mean, I know friends and I've got family members who are depressed. And honestly, I don't know how to help them. I mean, they confide in me and, in some cases have taken it out on me. And I go into self-preservation mode and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to limit my conversations. But I say that because, no, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist, a psychiatrist. I'm just a relative or a friend. But are there some tools that maybe we can have that, if someone they could be on the brink of suicide and we don't know it. We just look at them as, they're always upset or they're always or sad, and we don't know what we're looking at when someone is having a mental issue, right? Could you give us some, maybe some things or tools that we can have just as friends?
Yes. As friends, as lay people, you can ask questions directly. You can express concern. You want to listen out if your concern is, is this person going to possibly engage in self-harm or suicidal behavior? You want to ask them, have you thought about harming yourself? Are you thinking about harming yourself, right? Sometimes people are very afraid to ask that question because they think that they're sort of injecting that idea into the other person, but you're not, because you're also letting the person know that you're able to hear that. You also want to listen out for hopelessness. If the person is talking about, things are just never going to get better. If this has been going on for a while and they're talking about feeling hopeless, sometimes people speak in a way, that they say, I don't want to be here anymore. And people might be afraid to say, well, what do you mean when you say that? But that's the kind of thing you need to do, is ask somebody, when you say that, what do you mean? Or say, that really concerns me. Can you say more about that? And then you're right, most people are not, when they're talking to friends and family, even if I'm talking to friends and family, it's not as their therapist. But I would say, I'm very concerned. Have you spoken to somebody? I think you should speak to somebody. If you have your own experience, you can tell them, that can help also. I've been down, I've had anxiety, whatever it is, and I've spoken to somebody, to help to normalize that and remove the stigma for your friends and family.
Yeah, that's good.
I've actually found that very interesting in my travels, because my own father said to me he doesn't think he's going to be here that much longer. And for me, it was like, well, what are you saying? But me and my father, I didn't think much of it. But as far as what I've experienced between that time and now, I now do more listening to my friends and family. I double check. So like I talked to a buddy of mine several weeks ago, and I wasn't feeling like that. I think I had a cold or something. I said, man, I may be traveling. I'm not sure, but I'm not feeling well. And he said, okay. And he's a very caring individual. Well, the next day he called me and said, hey, how are you feeling today? So sometimes it's really about checking in, constantly checking in, use that as an example. With mental health as well. I mean, if I had a friend that called me up and said, he didn't want to be here any longer, I'd have to check in. I'd have to say, hey, what are you doing today? Let's have lunch. Let's get whatever. But I have to be honest and say that we're all living our own lives. And I don't mean to sound like a downer, but everyone kind of only cares about themselves many times. Nobody cares about others, I find that to be the case because of what's going on, COVID, finances, things of that nature. People are trying their best to take care of themselves and hide away. So we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a whole lot of work.
And Tony, if I can, you're right. I mean, to your point, as I was saying, your friends, you can help your friends to a point, I think. And then it starts wearing on you. I used to be that girl that people would call and I'll listen to your problems. And then I learned or realized this is taking up all my free time. By the end of the day, I'm feeling terrible. They walk away feeling great. And I'm taking it all on. And so I started, when I said the self-preservation thing, I started really limiting how much time I'm going to generate to that. And, I love and I care, but it's to a point. I think, my ability to help is very limited. And so, Dr. Cutts, I think what you were saying is, just maybe referring them to some kind of a therapist is probably.
Well, that's why I think that people like Dr. Cutts, they're special because
special.
you are on a basis, and everybody's not cut out for that.
And we have to engage in a lot of self-care ourselves, right? So, we're talking about I do this professionally, and at the end of the day, I still have friends and family, right, who might want to talk, and I'm like, I'm off the clock. No, I don't. But I do have to do is set some boundaries, and that's what it sounds like you're saying, Angela, and you're also saying, Tony, is that you do have to set some boundaries and take care of yourself. And we can still have a balance, right? To where we're saying, this is beyond what I can handle. I don't have expertise in this. I don't have experience in this. And what I can do is help you to find some resources, because sometimes we're not helping someone when, let's say, they're complaining incessantly, and we might just be enabling them because they're not really doing anything differently. So you have to sort of decide what the limits are for you, and offer these resources. But at the end of the day, people do also have to take that up themselves.
About that self-care, I mean, just in general, I know that, and now that certain people are getting ready to be on the campaign trail again, I'm telling you, that's depressing. There are so many things that are out there beyond our control that we're subjected to that can just, I mean, have a negative effect on us, you know, in all seriousness.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that we all can do just to, you know, keep ourselves balanced and, you know, mentally
Yeah.
balanced?
Well, the first thing is to make it a priority, right? Like Tony talked about, you know, a lot of folks are out here, they're struggling, they're trying to make money, they're trying to survive. And I think that there's something about our culture in general, the American culture, that really pushes us in that direction. But there has to be some balance. So I think that when you make self-care a priority, then other things necessarily have to shift, right? Like I stop work at a certain time. I take Sunday off. I don't see people on Friday. I have to go for my walks in the woods. You know, even if it's just taking 5 minutes at your desk or at your job to stand up, you know, to do something, there's always something you can do. So I think that you have to make it a priority, you know, and then you have to do things like follow up on your appointments, you know, go to your doctor, spend time with friends and family. You know, like Tony's talking about, reaching out to people. That's one of the things that helps us to be resilient, is to have social support.
Yeah.
You know, so looking at all those things, how do you feed yourself? Do you engage in religion or spirituality? What do you do for fun? You know, we're very, I think that, again, we're pushed to be imbalanced here. But if we sort of push back against that, we can start to carve out a different space for ourselves.
You know, as we talk about those kinds of things, I think about the guy on the street, the homeless guy.
Yeah.
All the things that you mentioned, he has no access to it, nor is he thinking that way. And that's the reason, one of the reasons he's probably in that space. Because he wasn't able to command that kind of walk and talk.
Right.
So the question is, how do we save our young folks from going down that road? I mean, it's just so big, you know.
Yeah.
There's just so many different situations going on, you know.
Yeah, and I don't mean to.
Family and outside the family, you know.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing you said, Tony.
In the family and outside of the family.
Yeah. And I don't mean to put all of the onus on the individual, right? There are a lot of societal factors that we also have to look at.
Yeah.
Right. So there's self-care, but then there's also community care, right? And there's enough work going around for everybody, right? We have to engage in our own self-care, but we also have to look at how these systems are set up, you know, how they do or do not support individuals. You know, why do people end up on the street? It's not their fault. A lot of it is the way our society is set up. And I think that that's one of the things we also need to do, is pay attention to that and not just be content with our privilege and then run. Right? What do we do to support each other?
I mean, I just left San Francisco, and the homeless population there is unbelievable.
It's
about this Title 42 that's going on right now, where you have people migrating. I'm sure there are people eventually that will be on the street, you know, because they could not keep up with whatever going on, you know. So, and lastly, I'd like to say that, you know, we talk about Suicide Prevention Month and Mental Health Month and things of that nature, where it's not just the month; it's the year. It's the every day. It's like we talk about African Americans Month or whatever it's called. I hate to use the word hate. But we're Black every day.
Black every day.
You know, we're Black every day. You
Yeah.
know? And so I think we need to do more of that every day. Not just do it once a month, Angela Strickland. You know what I'm saying?
What are you trying to say? Like every day too. But I am glad we're having this mental health awareness conversation today.
But no, I say it facetiously, but I'm serious about it as well. We need to do more of this every day.
Yeah, I really do. And Tony, I love that you have the Don Cornelius Foundation. I love that you champion suicide prevention all the time, not just Suicide Prevention Month. And you're right. I mean, all of this stuff happens. I live in Silicon Valley, right outside of San Francisco. And honestly, San Francisco used to be my favorite city because it's so beautiful and shopping and, just a cosmopolitan city. And it's completely different now.
Mhm.
And so many things have happened. The pandemic, I think it pushed a lot of people right over the edge. And they might not have started out mentally ill, but living on the streets, I'd imagine that'll do it to you. There's
Actually, what I found that I didn't see any homelessness while I was there for 2 days. And I was talking to the cab driver, but I had a private car, so I'm not going to say it was a cab driver. But anyway, I said, "Well, where's the homeless?" I said, "Where's the homelessness?" He said, "Well, if you go down there and go over 2 blocks, you'll see it."
It's everywhere.
You can see that in every city.
Yeah.
No, but here it's
Go
so
over
much.
2 blocks and go that way and see it in Chicago and New York and Philly. So sometimes I think the press, kind of
Not in this case, though, Tony. Not in
issue,
this case.
you
It's
know.
really, you didn't spend enough time.
No, obviously I didn't. I was
It's
in
really bad.
I was in the Down Street Market area.
Oh, yeah, it's nice over there.
Yeah, I mean, and
'Cause
so
that's where the
I
tourists go.
didn't see it. I really didn't see it.
Yeah.
We can go to LA and we can go find it, but there's areas that are, beautiful, and then we can go to Chicago and we can find it. But then there's areas that are beautiful. So how do you balance what it is and what it isn't?
Mm.
How do you do that?
Well, I think we can only all do what we can do, right? So, like I said, there's enough work to go around. There are people who help to change laws and defend people and who, take care of mental health and take care of physical health. But I think that each of us can ask ourselves the question of what do I do to contribute to helping, right? And it might not be, running a foundation like Tony does, right? It might just be helping friends and family, but we can all say, what is it that I can do?
Yeah. That's so good.
Because otherwise we can also, this is a part of mental health and taking care of ourselves. I'm a big fan of the Serenity Prayer. There are so many forces going on right now that lead to, we could be depressed all the time if we really just think about a lot of the things that are going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I try to use I actually do use the Serenity Prayer as a tool every day. God or Goddess, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, right? So there's some things I can't change, but the courage to change the things I can. Okay, what can I do today, right? Because if I get bogged down in all of those other issues that I can't affect, then that's not really going to do much for my mental health or my physical health even. So I have to accept some of those things, but I also have to look at, what is it that I can actually do?
Exactly. I'm trying to post one of these links that you just put up there. That's good stuff for people.
Yeah, I put something in the chat, but I don't know who can see what.
I just posted it. It's public
Okay.
now, and that's
Okay.
yeah, just under the comments. Whenever any other ones that you want to post,
Okay. I'll share the other one.
That would be wonderful. I can talk to both of you all day about this, and it's such an important conversation, and you both bring amazing and different perspectives. So I just want to thank you so much. And before we let you go, I want you to just tell everyone how they can stay connected to you on social media and otherwise. And starting with you, Dr. Cutts.
It's best to find me on Facebook at Vision Quest Retreats with Dr. Nicole Cutts.
And any parting words with people who are watching?
Parting words, yes. Engage in self-care, even if it's only 5 minutes a day, and then turn around and see what it is that you can do to help somebody else.
I love that. And the self-care, some people feel like they're being selfish if they do it, but it's self-preservation.
Yeah, it's like put the oxygen mask on yourself first.
How about that? I love it. And Mr. Cornelius, how can people
You can reach
get involved with
me
the foundation and follow
on
you?
Instagram. You can reach me at Mr. Tony Cornelius. You can reach me on Facebook at the Don Cornelius Foundation. You can reach me on Facebook under Mr. Tony Cornelius. You can also reach me on Twitter on Mr. Tony Cornelius. And I usually answer most of the folks that get to me. And then there's some that I don't. You know, obviously there are people who are on social media for other reasons, you know.
The trolls.
Or trying to slide in his DMs, Angela.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to, I just really want to key in on our Black men and say we have to do better, and we have to work harder. You know, I mean, life is tough. You know, and you know, my own mother, my sweet dear mother,
I love your mother.
a long time ago, she said, you know, Tony, only the strong survives. And that was the last thing I thought that she'd say to me, because she's such a sweet person. But it's so true, you know. And I have a daughter, and I continue to tell her the same thing. Only the strong survive. It's in the ecosystem. It's in the animal kingdom. It's in life, you know. And we have to work harder. We just do.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank both of you.
Thanks,
And I
Angela.
want all of you who took the time to write. I see my cousin is on here, Lisa and Sonia. Thank you. This is going to live forever on social media. And it's also, you can hear this conversation, well, some of it, on Sunday night on my radio show, Pillow Talk with Angela. So it comes on Sunday night on 96.3, your #1 music station in the country. Right after the Weekend Quiet Storm, and also on Sirius XM channel 141. Thank you both so much for joining me.
So lastly, how come you never invite me on your Pillow Talk program? Why didn't you never invite me on your Pillow Talk program?
You've been on Pillow Talk several times. Stop playing. We'll be back again on Sunday. See how he does me? You see?
Couples therapy. Call me. I'll do a session for you guys.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.